Ow.
So is this your wife?
Yeah.
What a beauty.
She
Isn't
was
that
a
a nice
beauty.
picture? I'll move it.
Yep.
What was her name?
Lucille.
Oh,
Lucille.
gorgeous.
She was a beauty
Did you get married before or after you went to war?
before.
Oh, so where did you all meet?
Well, I said before, but I was at camp, in a training camp,
Camp Barkley?
Camp Lee, Virginia.
Oh, indeed.
Did you have the other chicken thing?
Oh, really?
Oh. Didn't sound okay. Good.
I was at that camp for about 8 months.
That's in Petersburg, right?
Yeah.
That's near Petersburg.
Margie's mother's family.
Is that right?
From
There,
Colonial
Margie's. Is that where your father met your mother?
Yeah, he was stationed at Camp Lee. Fort Lee
Yeah.
then, but yeah.
And she was a local farm girl.
My mother.
Well, Lucille was a local farm girl too.
From Colonial Heights?
No. Green Bay.
Mm.
You know where that is?
Wisconsin?
No. Green Bay, Virginia.
Oh, no, I don't know where that is.
It's just about 20 miles southwest of Farmville.
Mm.
You know where that is?
South?
South.
South of Fort Lee?
Yes, south of Fort Lee.
Wow. You beat on a blind date? A lot of soldiers did in those days.
No, I wasn't on a blind date. At Thanksgiving time, we had some time off, so I came home. I thumbed the way home, hitchhiked the way home from Virginia to Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
And I had left my car at my old home in Massachusetts. I had a 37 Chevrolet.
Mm.
And so when I started to go back to the camp, I decided to take the car back. And so I had a car to drive around in Virginia. And I decided to visit this city with a teacher's college in Farmville.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to that city with a couple other guys, and we had lunch there. And when we came out from lunch, we went to where the car was parked. And next to my car was another car, a 39 Chevrolet. It had three girls in it. Had Lucille in the middle seat, and her sister was driving, and another girl on the passenger side. So I decided to try to get to know those girls, because I was very anxious to get to know some girls at that time.
And you hadn't settled on which of those girls you wanted to get to know more at that point,
Yes,
huh?
I do.
Ah.
That one right there. Right away I said, "That's my girl." I said, "Someday I want to marry her." And it was love at first sight.
Isn't that nice?
We were married about 8 months later.
Happy, I think your
Well,
first
you
child was born over in Europe, while you were in Europe, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
We have that letter.
No, he was born while I was on the high seas.
Oh, yes, that's
I was on
right.
the Atlantic Ocean.
Well, you found out when you were over there, right?
It took us 21 days to get to Oran, Algeria.
Mm-hmm.
When we got there, in the port, we had to stay in the port for about 3 days. I was there, I was walking around the deck of the ship one day, and somebody said, Lieutenant Tripp, we've got a telegram for you. A telegram for me? Yeah. And it was a telegram from my mother-in-law. She said, Lucille and baby doing fine.
It's a girl.
It's a boy.
So that was a boy.
Little boy.
And his name was?
Ronald.
So what year was that? That was 1941?
Four.
Oh, 44.
Yeah.
And how old were you? What year were you born?
1919.
February.
What?
In February, right?
March.
March. March what? Remind me.
March 5th.
Because I know when we visited you last time, it was right.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was on your birthday, maybe.
It was around there,
Or pretty
It may have
near.
been a little
pretty
earlier
near,
than that.
or earlier, maybe.
but right near
There,
there.
pull a few napkins out of there, right there under the.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what do you remember about Oran?
Oran?
Oran? Is that how you say it,
Oran,
Oran?
yeah. Well, it was kind of a dirty city, and I decided I wanted to get something to eat there.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to this restaurant, and of course everything was written in a foreign language.
Right.
I could understand French quite well, so I got it translated into French. And I thought it was beef, but it wasn't beef. I don't know what it was. It was something terrible.
Goat. Goat, maybe.
So were you at Camp Barkley when you and Lucille were married?
No,
You were still at Lee?
can't believe yes.
Mm-hmm. And when do you remember first meeting Dad?
When he went to Camp Barkley, he was when I first saw him, he was a captain. Well, within about 2 weeks, they made him a major. So I knew him all the time as Major Golden.
He was pretty young then, too. He was about 34, 33 years old, wasn't he?
He was fairly young, yes. He was very active.
Well, the whole group really came together there at Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell us what you remember about seeing and meeting our mother and those three little boys, Rennie, Michael,
Yeah.
and Larry.
Yeah. I remember seeing him playing in the sandbox somewhere while we were in Abilene.
I have pictures. I have that picture.
Yeah.
We have that picture.
And your mother was driving a big Buick convertible.
Which my father did after the war as well.
Yeah, he loved that car.
In fact, I think some of his letters indicated he had a big something convertible for a while over there.
He did. I don't remember where he got it, but he got a big car over there. Of course, he had
A few chips. We have one.
he had his own personal Jeep, Perky.
Turkey, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read one of the letters that he described, I guess the wintertime was pretty cold, and they re-outfitted Herky, so they made kind of a, instead of being a convertible open Jeep, they put some sort of contraption over it so it was closed.
Probably.
So the whole group of most of the doctors, most of the medical personnel got together at Berkeley, right?
Yes.
McGee and
Lowenthal. The two dentists.
Do you remember Colonel Lehman very well?
Yes.
What was his role?
He was just another one of the doctors in the company.
He's the one that your father went to Paris with.
Was that right?
Did you ever go to Paris?
During the war, yes. But your dad went to Paris after the war, right?
Well, it was after Paris had been liberated, but not before the war was over.
it was in 45, right?
Mm-hmm. I think it was in February, and they went, no, in January, and they stopped and saw Earl, his brother, at a hospital further in the back, further behind the 7th Army.
Did you ever meet my Uncle Earl?
No.
Well, my uncle Maury Rosenberg, Dad's brother-in-law, you must have met.
He was with
Maurice Rosenberg? No, because he was in the civil affairs group, and he was very near you all when you were up in the Alsace region.
I may have met him. My memory is not too good now.
I think y'all used to drink a lot of alcohol when you got together too.
Sometimes. I drank too much once or twice.
Well, he was married to my mother's sister Ruth, and it was in September of 1945 that Ruth was diagnosed with leukemia.
Oh.
And Dad took a week's leave to go to her side, and she got worse and died, and they extended his leave, and then I think he never came back. That was it for him in September. When did you come back from Europe?
November 21st, 1945.
But
Yeah,
That sounds
we've been-
right.
Went to Marseille. Took about 6 days to go from Austria to Marseille. Damn train just poked along,
Mm-hmm.
and all the passenger trains in France were modern trains, and they zipped right by everything.
Oh no.
And of course we were in an old cattle car.
Oh. So where was your last stop in Austria?
Bad Ischl. Bad Ischl.
Bad Isel.
Iso?
Yeah.
And then what happened? Did the group break up at that point?
No, we stayed together.
Dad was at the battalion level at that time, right?
Yeah.
Was the
But he
battalion
was
commander?
transferred. He was transferred to another outfit for some reason. I don't know why.
That could be around the time.
181st Medical Battalion, I think.
I don't know, but they transferred him, and we got another guy. That was I guess he was a major or lieutenant colonel. And I don't remember much about him, but he wasn't like your dad.
So for Larry, because you've done it for us a little bit, characterize our father.
Yeah. Tell me what he was like.
Well, he was a great guy. I enjoyed being with him, and he and I got along very well. We used to shower together sometimes. He'd wash my back, and I'd wash his back. So we got quite intimate. And but he was a very efficient guy. He could do just about anything that he put his mind to. Very smart.
Did he win at poker a lot?
I don't know. We didn't play poker.
What did the other guys in the unit think of him? I know you were close to him.
Yeah, they all thought he was great. He got along very well with everybody. Especially the dentist.
He had to. The problem with his plate. Tooth problem.
He had a lot of teeth problems. We were reading
Yeah.
about those the other day. Who was the dentist? Remember?
Tobin
Oh, Tobin was a dentist.
Tobin.
and
There's another one too. Yeah.
Sherman.
Do you remember Mr. Noun?
Who?
Mr. Noun, N-O-U-N. I think you all went into some village that was very German, but you were still in France. And there was this one man who was really helpful.
He was the mayor, I think.
He took their dad hunting, and he made some sort of pfeffer. What was that dish called, Mike? Pfeffer.
Pepper schnitzel or something. It was
Yeah, it's a weird rabbit
stew.
dish that took 3 days to prepare, and there was this big lead up into eating this pfeffer rabbit stuff, and their dad said it was horrible. But Mr. Noun was charged as a collaborator, and they put him in prison, I think, and then he was cleared, and he was a big landowner.
I don't remember.
Don't remember.
So, the unit didn't really lose anybody except maybe, I'm thinking one ambulance driver.
Ambulance driver, yes.
That was the only.
Yeah, he was a very fine man. I just thought he was great. He was a well-educated, handsome man, and head of the ambulance crew. He drove the ambulance. And one day we were in Germany, going somewhere, and it was dusk. So he put on his light, and a German plane overhead saw the lights, and they shot down at the ambulance and hit him right in the head.
Oh my
Killed him
goodness.
instantly. It was a terrible experience.
Oh, so I was remembering from someplace that Dad saying it was maybe it was an automobile accident rather than the way you described it, but E.T. might have been easing the story a little bit for my
I
mother.
don't know.
What was his name? Do you remember?
I don't remember right now. It might come to me. He was the captain.
Was he part of the same part of the company, right?
He was the head of the ambulance company. The ambulance company was separate from our clearing company,
Uh-huh.
but he headed up the ambulance group.
So what what do you remember about going into Germany? First going into Germany.
Well, we left from Naples, Italy, on an LST. No, not LST. LSI, landing ship infantry. It held about 15 men. And so we took about 2 days to get from Naples to France, the coastline of France. And when we got there, we had prepared the vehicles, all the trucks, so that we could drive them through the water, because there's a possibility that we were going to be bombarded. So we had the vehicles all prepared so that we could drive through the shoreline. And but when we got to the shoreline, they told us to back up, because it's quite possible that we were going to run into a mine. They thought there was a mine there, so we had to back up and start over again. And then
You weren't on Dad's ship, right? He was on a separate.
it was on a separate ship, yes. And we drove. This ship drove up onto the beach. And we just walked off the ship right onto the dry land.
And you was this a Red Beach also?
Piece of cake. What is it?
At Red Beach.
Red Beach. I don't know about it. Red
Cavalier.
Cavalier.
Cavalier, yes.
Yeah.
And was this all part of, at the same time as the rest of, this was Operation Dragoon? It's the same time as everybody else was landing?
Yeah. There were a number of people landed at that time. There were a lot of free French that landed there from Africa. And the free French, for some reason, a lot of them got injured because they were marching on the road, and the Germans came over and dropped bombs on the road, and the bombs hit a lot of the free French while they're walking on the road. So we had a lot of them in the hospital. They're the main occupants of the hospital when we first started. We first set up the hospital
On the beach?
about 150 yards from the beach, and of course we had a big red cross on our tent. We thought that might protect us, and I guess it did, because we didn't get bombed, but all the people that were walking on the road were in trouble, because the Germans seemed to realize that if they hit the road, they'd hit somebody. So they did. So we stayed there about 2 weeks. And while we were there, your dad told me, he said, you get all these German prisoners that were killed. There's a lot of German prisoners around there that have been killed. He said, and put them in that building there. There's a building by the seashore, concrete building, and he said put them in there and put the identification on them. So I did that. First time I ever dealt with dead bodies, but anyway, there were about 15 to 20 dead bodies that had to haul into that building and identify. Of course, they're all German. And there was one young kid. He wasn't more than 15, maybe 14. He had been manning a machine gun up on the hill above the seashore, and he was killed beside his machine gun. Just a young kid. But at that time, the Germans were using young kids and old men, because they're down to the last people that they could find. So anyway, we stayed there a couple of weeks. Then we got word to go north, and we headed up the highway, and nothing but desolation. I mean, there's so much, everything was demolished. All the roads were filled with damaged vehicles, German vehicles mostly, and you couldn't find anything that was of any value. Everything was in terrible shape. And when we got to these French villages, all the people came out. Of course, they wanted to hug us and tell us how glad they were to see us.
Did you have to take care of any of the civilians?
Sometimes, yeah.
Just hurt people.
But mostly it was Americans and sometimes Germans. But
Did you move pretty far every day? I mean, was there were you able to make, any headway?
yes,
France?
just about every day we moved. We moved farther north.
And would you have to set up the tents every day too?
Not every day, no. No, we didn't. We didn't set up tents, except when we decided to stay there for a week or two. It was quite a job to set up those tents.
Like a circus almost. You had the strikers and.
Yeah, we had a number of men who were experienced in setting up the tents, of course, and they did very well. And we had a motor generator that gave us electricity, and it worked some of the time, but not all the time.
Yeah. We have lots of letters that are interrupted by blackouts like that because the generator went out.
Yeah.
There was a point there where y'all have 3 hospitals under your care, the
Yes.
VD, the NP, and the General.
Yeah.
When did that divide into 3 on your way through France?
When we were in France, it divided. For some reason, we got an awful lot of soldiers that had sexual diseases.
Mm-hmm. They picked them up in Italy, didn't they?
They picked it up somewhere, I don't know where. But anyway, we got a lot of them.
Was that from the 7th Army that was in front of y'all?
Yes.
So they would send them back to you guys. And
Yeah.
started
You all
collecting
were
them.
attached to the 7th Army at that
Yes,
point,
we
right?
were.
Yeah.
Right. And the NP section, neuropsychiatric section, we had 2 psychologists,
Psychiatrist.
psychiatrists that were assigned to us, and your father hated them.
We see that. They drove me crazy.
They were impossible. I hated them too.
In what way? I mean, just
Well,
give me an example of
when they come to, usually, all the officers usually got together to eat, and they would sit by themselves and talk among themselves, the 2 of them, and they wouldn't talk to us. They were very standoffish, and they couldn't tell us anything that was of any interest. But they were very good psychiatrists, because we had quite a few men who came back from the front who couldn't
deal with it anymore.
deal with it. They had shell shock. So what these psychiatrists did was to give them sodium pentothal. They injected them with sodium pentothal, and then while they're still partly conscious, they would talk to them and get them to recite what happened to them, and sometimes they bring him out of the stupor, out of the consciousness. And that was quite a feat. It was quite interesting to watch them. I used to watch them quite often.
Did they send these men back up to the front again after they were?
I don't know what they did with them. I think mostly they sent them back to the front. I mean, back to the back.
Let me just stop for 1 sec. Just
Sure.
There's nobody there. Anyway, I get calls sometimes like that 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah, I believe
Nobody
it.
there.
Oy.
I used to tell them, kiss something. It gets rid fast.
Give us a, so what year did your son die?
Oh, he died 19... Oh, I can't remember. He was only 53 years old.
Oh
Uh-huh.
my goodness.
3 years young.
Yeah, he's very stubborn about going to the doctor. That was his problem. If he had gone to the doctor, they could have helped him. But he wouldn't go to the doctor. I guess he was kind of timid about the problem that he had. And he decided not to go to the doctor. He decided he was going to treat it himself. Well, after about 6 months, he got to the point where he couldn't do anything. And so they finally put him in a hospital, and next word we got was that he was dying in the hospital.
Mm. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I couldn't visit him at that time. Both Lucille and I were having trouble walking at the time. Lucille was quite incapacitated, and I couldn't hardly walk at that time. So we decided we weren't going to go to New Orleans. So he died before we could get to see him. And we got to talk to a guy that knew him well while he was in New Orleans. We got to this guy who had made friends with him, and he arranged for him to be cremated. So we were pleased he had a friend that would take care of him, because we couldn't.
That's nice.
So had he been married?
No, he never married.
Ah. So Tripp is the only grandchild? Or does Pam have?
Other kids.
She's
Other
got
kids.
yeah. She's got Courtney, who is 22 now, 23.
Uh-huh.
She's in Tampa. And she's got Dallas. He's a hole of terror. She's 13, just turned 13 last week. And she's been expelled from school about 3 times.
Oh no.
Serious holy terror then, huh?
Yeah. But anyway, she was here last week. She spent about 3 or 4 hours with me last week. Pam and her spent 3 or 4 hours with me last week. And I thought she was very nice. She was very polite to me. And just a very nice teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's nice.
But sometimes she's very nasty. Even to her mother, to her brother, to Tripp. She treats Tripp like a dog. But anyway, she's a nice girl. Sometimes.
So going back to your time in Europe, give us a funny story or two. You did have times when things were a little slow and
Yeah.
you could all have a little bit of laugh or two. Do you remember those times?
Not many times when we had time to do much laughing. But sometimes we'd get sort of pixelated. We'd get some French wine or French cognac, French kirsch. If you know what kirsch is,
Yeah, strawberry, strawberry, right?
really strong. And quite often when we stopped by these French places, they'd offer us some kirsch. And you had to be careful about drinking kirsch, because it'd knock you out.
You've read a lot of the letters in which Harold talks about the kinds of food you were eating. He mentions Vienna sausage, corned beef hash, a lot of canned, I don't know, sardines and
I think
shrimp
a lot of
and
canned things
lobster,
that they were sending from back in the
MREs.
States.
MREs.
salamis.
Yeah. Oh, your
had
basic
MREs too?
meals were MREs.
Yes, yeah. But when we got into Austria, and when the war had settled down some, the cook was able to prepare some meals. So we didn't have to have the MREs in. And then we have some pretty good food. Sometimes it'd be steak, and sometimes ham, because
Depending on whether something moved down the road or went like oink, right?
yeah, the army kept us pretty well supplied, and they tried to take good care of us.
Did you smoke cigarettes back then?
Yes, I smoked all the time.
Did you get a pack a day? Harold was
Well-
talking about a pack a day.
I used to smoke all the time, but I didn't smoke it. I don't think a pack a day. I smoked maybe half a pack a day.
Hmm.
But I quit smoking when I came to Florida
Good
about
for you.
20 years ago.
Good.
And you came down here to help them set up a plant, right?
Yes,
What was your company again? I forgot.
Microdyne Corporation.
Oh, Microdyne.
Yeah, they're out of business now. And
And what happened to their plant here?
it's still there. The building's still there, but it was sold to some other company, and I don't know what happened to it. But I don't think anybody's using it right now. I think it's vacant.
Did you stay with Microdyne to the end? Till you retired?
I stayed with them until I retired, yes. It got to the point where they were running out of business. Business got very bad, and they started laying off people. And then one day they told me that I'd have to go. At the same time, they told about 12 other people that had to go. And so that was about the end of Microdyne Corporation. But they still had some business to take care of, and they sold that business to an outfit in somewhere up north that took over the business, and they ran the business for about 5 years. But the last time I heard, they had given up on it.
Willis, do you remember where you had gone in Germany when you were in Germany?
Where did you
Well-
cross the Rhine? Do you remember?
I think near Salzburg. I remember Salzburg was a beautiful little town. It was spared any destruction. Some of the other towns around there were just plastered. But Salzburg was spared for some reason. But we went north into Germany, and we stopped at all the larger towns, and we would, well, we didn't do much of anything, really. I can't remember the names of the towns that we stopped at.
One of them was Fusen. Does that name ring a bell?
Fusen?
Fusen?
Fusen, yes. Fusen was in
F-U-S-S-E-N.
Germany, yes. Fusen,
S-E-N.
F-U-S-S-E-N, I
Ah.
think.
Mm-hmm. SSEN is right.
We stopped there.
Did you stay in the towns, or just on the outskirts of the towns that you went through?
We stayed on the outskirts usually.
Jeez.
We would go into, we'd take take over a building like a school building, and we'd live in that school building for a while. Or some kind of an auditorium, whatever there's available there. And we set up a hospital inside the building for the NP hospital or the other hospital,
The VD.
VD hospital.
Did you treat any Germans?
Yes, we sometimes treated Germans.
Civilians or soldiers?
Both, yeah. But not usually the civilians.
How much interaction did you have with the civilians in these German towns?
Very little, because there were very few Germans in there, except women. But the men had all gone. There were a lot of women there, and children.
Were they friendly or standoffish?
They were okay, yes. Most of German women were okay. And the kids, of course, all wanted chewing gum
Mm-hmm.
or candy.
Some things never change.
Huh?
Some things never change.
Right.
Approximately what date was that you went into Germany?
Oh, 1946, I guess.
45?
45 would have been
45.
like in March.
Yeah. something
Before the
like
war was over.
that. Yeah.
Well, you were in Germany before VE Day, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you were in Germany when VE Day happened, I guess.
Well,
That would have
we
been
were
May.
we were in southern France on VE Day.
Uh-huh.
Did you go back and forth between France and Germany?
No.
And so once you
Once
entered
we-
Germany, you were there.
Once we got in Germany, we stayed there, yes. Germany was a big mess. It was terrible.
But then you came down into Austria.
Then we came into Austria, yes. And when we got into Austria, of course Austria was such a beautiful place. All the very beautiful mountains, very beautiful scenery. And when we got into this little town of Bad Ischl, which was a winter resort for the German people, German actors and actresses stayed there during the winter, and there was a hospital there that we took over, and they had some German doctors there. They were very nice to us. There was one German doctor there who was a surgeon, and he took a lot of pictures of our troops and our officers. He took pictures of me, and I've got some of the pictures that he took. Very good
Really?
pictures. And they tried to help us all they could. They were very good.
This was in what town?
Bad Ischl.
Bad Ischl?
Bad Ischl.
Because I know that you also went to Berchtesgaden, right?
Berchtesgaden, yes. Well, I didn't go to Berchtesgaden, no, because Berchtesgaden was some distance from us,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very hilly country, very hard to get there. But of course, that's where Hitler hung out in those last days. But we never got there. I never got there anyway.
Dad did. Dad visited.
He probably did.
Yeah, we have
He
some
said he
photographs.
came back with a few souvenir wine glasses or something like that. He was a big souvenir guy.
And Willis, when you were in Germany, did you all hear rumors about the concentration camps, or did you know
Yes.
you were coming up to them then?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we knew that. We knew there were concentration camps. And we went to in Austria. We went to Dachau. That was a terrible hellhole. Awful.
Now, the 7th Army got there before you, right?
One day before we did, yes.
And was the 3rd Army involved in that too, to your
I think they
recollection?
may have been. The third Army probably was involved somewhat.
He was the first medical company into
Yes.
Dachau
That's
after it was liberated.
Yeah, it was a terrible mess. Awful. The people were just skin and bone. And we got in there the day after the American troops, liberated Dachau. And I remember there was a train on the outskirts of the town that had, it's full of bodies. There's dead bodies. And among the bodies was a dead SS trooper. They had shot him. And there were other SS troopers that had been shot around the camp. When we got there, we went into an area where they had a big pile of bodies heaped up beside a building, and there were bodies. They were just naked, skin and bones. On top of the pile of bodies, and there were probably 30 to 50 bodies there, piled up on a big pile beside this building. And on top of the pile was a naked woman, dead of course, but she was plump. She was apparently a worker there, and the Americans had shot her and put her on top of the pile, and she of course was dead. And that pile of bodies was next to the big building where they had the incinerators. They had three incinerators, and when you went to that building, the building had sort of an entrance where they had a lot of shelves with cots, not cots, but shelves lined up, and on the shelves were stacks and stacks of clothes taken from the prison, and they're all piled up neatly on the shelves. And as you went further into the building, you came to a door that said Bad, B-A-D-E-N, Baden. Supposed to be for bath. Of course, it wasn't a bath, it was for a gas chamber. And what they did was to get those people in that building, take off their clothes, put them into into this room that had a bottom over it. We closed the door. Then
Well, then I guessed them.
Yeah, we know what happened. How long did you stay at Dachau, do you remember?
we stayed at Dachau about a week.
And what were your duties there? Was it just help the sick who were
We tried to
still alive?
help the sick and feed them because they hadn't eaten for weeks, I guess. And of course, we tried to communicate with them as best we could, but most of them were German, Austrian Jews, and they had some terrible stories to tell. And they were so thankful for us to be there. We tried to help them.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure they were so grateful. So Harold set up like a tent and people were there taking care of people then, right?
Well, we didn't need to have a tent because there's a building there that we could use to help the people.
Right.
And
But you were all there sort of as triage until somebody else came to provide
yeah,
more long-lasting medical care. Is that right?
yeah, we didn't stay there very long. We stayed there about a week or maybe 10 days,
Mm-hmm.
and then they told us to go to I'm trying to think of Würzburg, but not right.
Wicksburg.
No, not Würzburg.
So
but
Mauthausen, not that. This is-
Mauthausen, right, Mauthausen.
they sent you from Dachau to Mauthausen?
Mauthausen, right. Of course, Mauthausen was just a short distance from Dachau.
Ah.
Mauthausen, I think, was about